The four-belt era. Boxing today is defined by what is called the four-belt era. This began in 2004, when all four major sanctioning bodies were fully recognized at the world level: the WBA, WBC, IBF, and WBO. Each of these organizations awards its own world title in every weight class. That means in a single division, up to 4 different fighters can each call themselves a world champion at the same time. Before 2004, the sport was split between 2 and 3 belt eras. In the 1980s and 1990s, the WBO was often ignored in the United States and Europe, and only the WBA, WBC, and IBF were considered legitimate. By the early 2000s, however, the WBO gained recognition after top fighters like Oscar De La Hoya, Joe Calzaghe, and Nassim Hamed held its titles. Once the WBO was widely accepted, boxing officially entered the four-belt era. Since then, modern stars like Gervonta "Tank" Davis have risen in this system. Tank has held versions of the WBA title in multiple divisions, including lightweight, super featherweight, and super lightweight. His name is announced as a world champion in each of those weight classes, which shows the visibility and status a major belt provides in the four-belt era. But Tank also illustrates the confusion. At lightweight, Devin Haney was the WBA super champion, while Davis held the regular version. Both fighters were introduced as champions, even though they shared the same weight class under the same organization. For casual fans, this raises questions. If both are world champions, which one is really at the top? The WBA belt. The World Boxing Association belt is the oldest of the 4 major world titles. The WBA was originally founded in 1921 as the National Boxing Association in the United States, before expanding globally and changing its name in 1962. Its world title belt is most often recognized by its red strap and large gold centerpiece. Because it was the first sanctioning body, the WBA carried great historical weight. Many of the sport's biggest names, including Joe Louis, Roberto Duran, and Vladimir Klitschko, have all held WBA championships. Manny Pacquiao added to that history in the modern era when he won the WBA welterweight title in 2018, becoming one of the oldest fighters to hold a major belt at age 40. His run showed how the WBA could still elevate a global superstar decades after his prime years, keeping the belt visible at the highest level. Despite its long history, the WBA is often criticized for recognizing more than one world champion in the same division. At the top, it designates a super champion, usually a unified or long-reigning title holder. Beneath that, it continues to sanction a regular champion, introduced as a world title holder even if he hasn't beaten the super champion. When a champion is inactive, it can also approve an interim champion. The practical result? One weight class can feature 3 different WBA title holders at once, all marketed as champions, which blurs who actually sits at the top. The WBC belt. The World Boxing Council belt is one of the most recognizable and prestigious in the sport. The WBC was founded in 1963 in Mexico City, with the support of the Mexican government and international delegates. Its belt is easily identified by its green strap and large gold centerpiece surrounded by national flags. Over the decades, it has become the most sought-after title for many fighters, partly because of the champions who carried it. Muhammad Ali, Mike Tyson, and Manny Pacquiao each held the belt during key moments in their careers. Floyd Mayweather made it central to his identity, defending the WBC title across multiple divisions, including lightweight, welterweight, and super welterweight, while building his undefeated record. His association with the green belt in the 2000s and 2010s reinforced its image as the sport's most prestigious prize. The WBC is known for implementing reforms in boxing safety and rules. It was the first sanctioning body to shorten championship fights from 15 rounds to 12, a change made in the 1980s after the tragic death of Dooku Kim. It also created mandatory challenger rule to prevent champions from avoiding top contenders. In practice, these rules gave the WBC influence over matchmaking and helped it gain legitimacy among fans. Criticism of the WBC centers on parallel designations that muddy the picture. The franchise status lets selected stars keep a champion label while skipping mandatories. The council then crowns a separate world champion to handle mandatories in the same division. Add one-off ceremonial belts, Mayan, Huichol, etc., and you can have 2 WBC champions at once, plus extra straps on fight night. Great for promotion, confusing for hierarchy. The IBF belt. The International Boxing Federation belt was established in 1983. making it one of the newer major titles. The IBF was created after a split within the United States Boxing Association, and it quickly gained recognition by sanctioning major fights in the heavyweight division. Its belt is usually red with a gold centerpiece showing a globe and 2 continents. The IBF became known for its strict enforcement of mandatory defenses. Each champion is required to face the top-ranked challenger within a set time frame, with little flexibility. If a fighter refuses or takes another fight instead, the IBF often strips them of the belt. This has happened even to undisputed champions, which means the organization has a reputation for being consistent, but sometimes disruptive to big matchups. One example is Lennox Lewis, who was stripped of the IBF title in 2002 for refusing to fight a mandatory opponent. Tyson Fury also lost the IBF belt shortly after winning it from Vladimir Klitschko, because he agreed to a rematch instead of facing the IBF's mandatory challenger. The IBF enforces a rigid mandatory cycle. After winning the belt, a champion must face the mandatory challenger within a set window. Unifications can take precedence once. If the champ signs a different fight or a rematch, the IBF orders a purse bid. Non-compliance means immediate stripping. That's why Lennox Lewis, 2002, and Tyson Fury, 2015, lost the IBF title outside the ring. The belt was removed for skipping the IBF mandatory, not for a defeat. The WBO belt. The World Boxing Organization belt was founded in 1988, making it the youngest of the 4 majors. Its strap is usually brown or maroon, with a gold centerpiece featuring a ship and globe. At first, the WBO struggled for legitimacy. In the 1990s, it was often dismissed by American promoters and broadcasters, who recognized only the WBA, WBC, and IBF. For years, the WBO champion was not always seen as a real world champion in the United States. Recognition began to shift as major fighters won and defended WBO titles. Chris Eubank, Nassim Hamed, and Joe Calzaghe all helped raise its profile in the 1990s. By the 2000s, Oscar de la Hoya and Vladimir Klitschko held WBO belts, forcing promoters and networks to treat it on equal terms with the other 3. Once unified champions began including the WBO in their title collections, it secured its place in the 4-belt era. Today, the WBO belt is considered fully legitimate. Terence Crawford built his reputation by collecting WBO titles in 2 divisions. He first became undisputed at junior welterweight with the WBO as part of his collection, then repeated the process at welterweight after unifying again in 2023. His achievements showed how far the WBO had come, from being dismissed as a minor belt to playing a central role in crowning modern, undisputed champions. The lineal champion. The lineal champion, defined by the phrase, "the man who beat the man." Unlike a sanctioning body belt, this title is passed directly from champion to challenger through victory in the ring. If a recognized champion loses, the winner becomes the new lineal champion, regardless of whether belts are stripped, vacated, or reassigned by organization. This system traces back to the early days of boxing, when only one champion existed in each division. It preserves the idea of a single, true champion, without politics involved. A modern example is Vladimir Klitschko, who held multiple belts and was considered the lineal heavyweight champion. When Tyson Fury defeated him in 2015, Fury inherited the lineal title. Even after Fury was stripped of his sanctioning body belts for not facing the IBF mandatory, many still recognized him as the lineal champion. Fury's personal struggles and long absence from the sport created debate over whether the lineage was broken. When he returned in 2018 and eventually defeated Deontay Wilder, many argued that his victories restored and strengthened his claim to the lineal championship. This showed how the title can survive outside the sanctioning system, depending on how fans and historians interpret continuity. The lineal title can become complicated when champions retire, move divisions, or are inactive for long periods. In these cases, historians and analysts debate how to restart the lineage. Because there is no official sanctioning body overseeing it, recognition depends on consensus among fans, media, and record keeper. The undisputed champion. An undisputed champion is a fighter who holds all 4 major world titles, the WBA, WBC, IBF, and WBO, at the same time in a single weight division. This status removes all doubt about who the true champion is, since no other fighter in that division can claim a recognized belt. The idea of being undisputed has existed since the 2- and 3-belt eras, but it became more complicated in the four-belt era. To achieve it, a fighter must defeat or unify titles against other belt holders, while also meeting the demands of multiple sanctioning bodies. Because each organization enforces its own mandatory challengers, schedules, and sanctioning fees, unifying all four belts is extremely difficult. Only a small number of fighters have managed it. In recent years, Terence Crawford became the first man to unify all four at welterweight. Alexander Usyk achieved it at cruiserweight. Canelo Alvarez unified super middleweight, while Naoya Inoue did the same at bantamweight. Each of these cases required years of negotiation and a willingness by promoters, broadcasters, and sanctioning bodies to cooperate. Undisputed champions stand out in boxing history because the status is rare and fragile. In the four-belt era, an undisputed champion inherits four separate mandatory clocks. Within roughly a year, at least one body will order a defense that clashes with another body's deadline, or a rematch clause. Miss one order and the champion is stripped. So undisputed reigns usually end via administrative timeline rather than a loss in the ring. That scarcity makes the achievement one of the most respected honors in the modern sport. Interim titles. An interim title is a temporary version of a world championship, created when the official champion cannot defend the belt. Sanctioning bodies introduced this concept in the 1990s to prevent long delays caused by injuries, illnesses, or other scheduling issues. Instead of leaving a title vacant, they allow two contenders to fight for the interim belt. The winner is then recognized as the mandatory challenger when the full champion returns. In theory, the system ensures activity in a division and gives rising contenders a meaningful opportunity. If the full champion cannot return within a reasonable time frame, the interim title holder can be promoted to full champion status. David Benavidez has held the WBC interim super middleweight title while waiting for a fight against Canelo Alvarez, highlighting how interim belts can trap contenders in long delays. Jaron Boots Ennis won the IBF interim belt at welterweight in 2023 and defended it while Terence Crawford held the full championship. When Crawford moved up in weight and vacated, Ennis was officially elevated to IBF world champion. His path showed how an interim belt can function as both a holding position and a direct route to a recognized world title once the division opens. Franchise titles. The franchise title was introduced by the World Boxing Council in 2019. It was described as a special designation for elite champions who had achieved significant success in multiple divisions or made exceptional contributions to the sport. Unlike traditional belts, the franchise title is not won or lost in the ring in the usual way. Instead, it is assigned by the WBC and can be carried across weight classes without mandatory defenses. The first franchise champion was Canelo Alvarez, followed by fighters like Teofimo Lopez and Vasily Lomachenko. Lopez's case highlighted the confusion the designation created. After defeating Lomachenko in 2020, Lopez was recognized as the WBC franchise champion at lightweight, but Devin Haney was already the WBC's standard champion. This meant both men claimed to be WBC champions in the same division, even though they had never fought each other. The WBC presented the franchise title as recognition of elite status, but it quickly became one of the most disputed ideas in modern boxing. Because franchise status is assigned, not won through mandatory, and can be portable across weights, the lineage of WBC champion split between franchise and world titles in the same division, which is why fans argue over who the real champion is. Special event belts. Special event belts are one-off titles created by sanctioning bodies, most often by the WBC, to commemorate a specific fight. These belts are not part of the regular championship system and are designed solely for promotional value. They usually feature custom artwork, colors, or themes tied to the event or location. Examples include the Mayan belt and Huichol belt, which were awarded in fights involving Canelo Alvarez, and the special WBC belt made for Floyd Mayweather versus Conor McGregor in 2017. Tyson Fury's heavyweight fights, and even a Jake Paul event, have also been given unique WBC-designed belts. National titles. National titles are championship belts contested within a single country. They are sanctioned by local governing bodies rather than the major international organization. These belts serve as milestones for fighters beginning to climb the professional ranks, often acting as a gateway to regional or world-level recognition. The British title is one of the most respected examples. Fighters like Lennox Lewis and Ricky Hatton carried the Lonsdale belt before moving on to world championships. Tyson Fury also won the British heavyweight title in 2011 when he defeated Derek Chisora. That victory not only earned him domestic recognition, but also positioned him for bigger opportunities at European and world level. Fury's rise from national champion to lineal and unified heavyweight champion shows how these titles can launch a fighter's career on the global stage. In Mexico, national titles carry strong cultural weight, with champions such as Julio Cesar Chavez and Eric Morales fighting for them early in their careers. Historically, national titles held greater importance because international sanctioning bodies were less prominent. As globalization grew, their visibility declined compared to world championships, but they remain highly valued within domestic boxing. For fans, national belts identify the best fighter in their country at a given weight. For boxers, they provide leverage to secure bigger fights and world rankings. The Ring Magazine Belt. The Ring Magazine Belt is awarded by The Ring, a boxing publication founded in 1922. Unlike belts from sanctioning bodies, it is not tied to sanctioning fees, mandatory challengers, or political rulings. Instead, it is given to the fighter considered the true champion of a division based on rankings and results. The most common method of awarding it is when the number 1 ranked fighter in a division meets the number 2. The winner is recognized as the ring champion, and the belt can then be defended against top contenders. If the champion retires, moves to another weight class, or is inactive for an extended period, the title is vacated until a new champion is crowned. Because it is independent of sanctioning bodies, many fans regard the ring belt as a purer symbol of championship status. It reflects performance and lineage rather than organizational politics. Champions like Sugar Ray Robinson, Roberto Duran, and Manny Pacquiao have all held the ring belt alongside their world titles. Vladimir Klitschko carried the ring heavyweight title during his long reign in the 2000s and early 2000s, when he unified multiple sanctioning belts. His status as both the ring champion and lineal champion gave clarity to a division often split by competing organizations.